Hello there, it's Roberto and is FPL Yellow Army reporting for duty, and in today's video we will be doing a very interesting pick of some early looks at FPL assets for Watford in the 2021 to 22 season. As the official FPL juicer for Watford, I'll try and give my advice on who I think are the best options now that the game has officially launched. So in this video, I'm going to pick one goalkeeper / defender, one midfielder and one forward. It's going to be very hard to whittle it down to that because, of course, there's some great FPL options from Watford. Mainly in our attack, I'd say defence is a problem because we concede goals. We're going to be there and thereabouts in the relegation battle. There's no, shying away from that. If we can get, mid-table, then fantastic. But I'd rather get that, locked in before we actually start discussing a lot of defensive goals and assists and stuff. So, yeah, there's a few key men really to point out with, but also get down whether you think that I'm wrong with any of these, and if so, I'll be happy to hear the feedback. But I'm pretty confident in these picks because, as a Watford fan, I've watched this team week in, week out, and we've brought in some interesting players who can really, make stuff interesting in this fantasy Premier League game. So, yeah, the best FPL options for 2021 to 22 for each of those positions, and I'll tell you why with each player. So let's say we start off with the goalkeeping situation. Now, I think with goalkeepers for Watford, it is a bit of a no-brainer. Now, people can disagree with me, but I think, despite Watford's tendency to, concede goals in the Premier League, especially to your likes of Man City and, Chelsea and Manchester United, I still feel that a budget goalkeeper, which is what both of the Watford goalkeepers are, could be a really good strat, because at the end of the day, to make a great FPL team, you need, budget options. You need to really sort out that budget of 100 million. And when you look at our goalkeepers, Daniel Bachmann, he's probably going to be the man to start. And at 4.5 million, cheap as chips, and he could be a great option. As is the cycling GK, Ben Foster. So cheap, 4 million. So if you need a backup goalie, then cycling GK is your man, Ben Foster, because realistically, if you look at all the other 4 million goalkeepers, the chances of them maybe getting a start like you've got with Ben Foster is much less. So Foster's got a decent chance of playing. Obviously, he'll want to get a few games for his YouTube channel. No, but seriously, I think Foster is a brilliant player for FPL because he does make a lot of saves. It will be a question whether he plays. I think Bachmann did play him off the park in the end of the season. Obviously, we know Foster got injured, so Bachmann had to come in. And from a goalkeeper point of view, it was a very frustrating time for Daniel Bachmann. He hadn't played for Watford for ages, and he was just waiting on the sidelines, ready to take his moment. And boy, did he take it. And he had made some amazing saves, got some amazing points won for Watford in the back end of that championship season. So I think Bachmann will probably be the man in between the sticks. But he certainly is a safe pair of hands, as well as Ben Foster. So for me, if I had to choose one of the goalkeepers, just because of price, I would go Ben Foster, because I think there's a few other goalkeepers that people are, keeping their eyes upon. But you could easily get both Watford goalkeepers to double up in that respect. However, though, you have got some good attacking Watford options, so you don't want to take away too many Watford spots. Just 3 allowed in the team. All right, then, let's move on to the next one, which is defence. Now, with this one, it's a tough one because with Watford, we never quite know with our defence. We can beat big teams like Liverpool and, keep a clean sheet, or we can equally lose 8-0 to Man City. But chances are we'll be in for a long season because it's so hard to step up straight away from the Championship and have that defensive solidity. We want to go for games, of course, but I think we've got to kind of rebuild this season and just be happy to stay up. So I don't think the defence is going to be a massive thing to target, but when you look at a lot of our defenders, we have a lot of creativity in that defence, and they are very cheap. So the main contenders, I think there's 7 key FPL assets for Watford, and these are across each of those positions. Ben Foster, and then in defence, Kiko Femenia, Francisco Sierralta, Danny Rose. Those are my 3 fullbacks and centre-backs that I'm going for. But you could easily say a case for Adam Messina. The question is, with that Adam Messina and Danny Rose dilemma, is which one plays. But I think Danny Rose probably starts the season at left-back. With Adam Messina, he had a very consistent season last time. And he's a great option. So you could see those two, Messina and Rose, regularly rotate. But Rose has got attacking potential and he's a very experienced player. So I don't see why Danny Rose isn't a bad option. I think that, he'll want to play after, having a few injuries and frustrations at Newcastle. And I think that Danny Rose is a pretty cracking option at 4.5 million. He gets forward and he's actually used to getting forward for the clubs he's been at. And you could say that he plays a bit out of position. It's a bit like another Lord Lundstrom or John Lundstrom, Stuart Dallas kind of thing, because at the end of the day, he's used to playing attacking. He can play on that left wing, can play on that right wing, but mainly on the left back spot. But he actually did score a lot of goals for Tottenham, the odd goal for Sunderland, and he actually was already at Watford, but just for a very short and brief period. So he could be the next, budget out of position defender, but I think another player in defence who certainly needs to get a mention is Kiko Femenia. He was our most consistent player last season, along with Ismaila Sarr, and he is so attacking. For FPL purposes, Femenia looks like a really, really good idea. But the thing with Kiko Femenia is I worry about his decision-making sometimes, and he could get up a few yellow cards in there. Maybe you're thinking with Rose you can get some more goals rather than just assists for Kiko Femenia. But with Sierralta, I think maybe he's an option to go for if you're struggling for money. Now, all these defenders are pretty cheap, but Sierralta's only 4.5. And you ask, why not get him in? But I'm not sure he's much of a goal threat, if I'm perfectly honest. He did score 1 goal for us last season against Rotherham, but, he doesn't often get up in the back post. And alright, he's a very strong and physical player. The Chilean Maldini, we call him. Looks like he models his play on Van Dijk. Very strong, very good in the box. But will he be able to muscle out some Premier League defenders and get goals? I don't think so. So maybe he's one to kind of put down the pecking order. But Danny Rose, I think, certainly a very nice option. Alright, let's move on to the next position of the video, and that is midfield. So I need to narrow those down, I do realise, to 1 goalkeeper or defender, 1 midfielder and 1 forward, which we will do that, certainly. So with goalkeeper / defender, we're over with that, we're finished with that. It's a tough one because, as I mentioned, those goalkeepers are cheap as chips. But for me, there is only one man that has to be chosen, and that is Danny Rose. Now, you can say go get Ben Foster, and I'm sure a lot of people have got Ben Foster as their second goalkeeper, but I just think Danny Rose as a signing could be really attacking. It's a bold one because, of course, we don't know about selection and how many minutes he'll get, and obviously he is 30 years old. I think he wants to be really playing for this team. I think he has the attitude, hopefully, to really go for it, but he gets goals in his previous teams, so why not go for it over someone like Femenia, who does do quite well, but Rose can offer something fresh and exciting. Alright, now we've got to pick 1 midfielder, and there's a few contenders for this one because, of course, a lot of wingers in FPL qualify as midfielders, so it's very nice for that purpose of Ismaila Sarr, for example, qualifying as a midfielder, getting the extra point for the clean sheet and the goal. And I think he is the number 1 man, really, for this midfield. But we will talk about the others. Ismaila Sarr, what a player. We did so well to keep on with him, and he did very well to admit to the club that he wanted to, stay and help Watford get promoted. And, so far so good with keeping Sarr. And let's hope that he'll be, back in the goals, because he's been a solid player for us over the last few years. He can do it against the big teams, and he just is so important in the way we play. I mentioned Femenia earlier, but those two link up so well, so you could get assists for each other. But Sarr is just going to be one of our top scorers, you'd imagine, so it looks like a bit of a no-brainer. At 6 mil, it is a bit of a bargain, in my opinion. But, Ismaila Sarr hopefully will stay. I think he's committed to the club right now. And the great thing with Ismaila Sarr is, as well as the fact he's got a great price, he's on penalties, I think. Most times out of 10, he will be taking them. Joao Pedro took a couple in the Championship, and also, of course, Troy Deeney. But Deeney's got a lot of problems right now with injuries and lack of fitness and just being out of favour really at the age he is. So you'd imagine Sarr takes up that responsibility and that makes him an even better FPL option. Right, let's move on then to the next midfielder to talk about, and that is Ken Sema. Now, this is a bit of a dilemma. I don't think he's one to get straight away in your teams because, you know, he had a great season, got lots of assists last season in the Championship, but will he play? I'm not 100% sure. I think we'd probably play Joao Pedro out on the left-hand side this season, and with our new forwards coming in, we start someone there and have Ismaila Sarr on the right. So it is a problem, but he could be the super sub, Ken Sema. Certainly is going to have a part to play, I think, but I don't think he's nailed on to play. So I would avoid Ken Sema at the minute. Also, we've got Nathaniel Chalobah and Will Hughes. You'd imagine they both start as well in this team. They've both had very good seasons. Hughes is not about the attacking, really. He's about breaking up the play. So in a way, he's a bit of an N'Golo Kante FPL option, not one that you necessarily want to pick up, but if he picks up a little bit of form, scores a few goals, then he could go on a nice run. And Chalobah didn't score a lot of goals before last season, but this season he actually did, past the season that passed, he actually did quite well in terms of goals. You know, some nice ones where he was just peeling around the back of the wall and the back of the defence for a set-piece goal, and, you know, scored a wonderful goal of the season winner against Cardiff. But will he repeat that in the Premier League? I don't think so. So I'd probably leave it there with the defensive midfielders. They are probably going to pick up some bookings and not much goal threat, you'd imagine. We've also signed Imran Louza, who I think is going to be a great option. But is he going to be more of a defensive side of the game? Perhaps. He's probably our long-term replacement for Capoue at a very young age, about 22, 23. Is he an FPL option? I wouldn't gamble on it yet, but he could be later down the line. So it's no contest, really. I think Ismaila Sarr has to win the midfielder spot that I am selecting. So now we finally go to the forward line. And this is a very topical and interesting talking point because, you know, we did have a bit of a weird season in the fact that we had a lot of injuries in the Project Restart, but also in the start of the Championship season. And that was a bit of a problem because we weren't scoring goals and we actually started to rely on the youth and excitement and prospect of Joao Pedro. Now, Joao Pedro, I do feel, will have a big role to play. You know, it's his first, you know, full Premier League season, hopefully, and he was really good last season. So there's no doubting he's got a lot of talent and he could be a bench striker if you need it. At 5.5 million, he's a pretty nice price. But I don't know about Pedro. I think he'll want to start down the middle, but we can play him down the left because we have brought in Emmanuel Dennis. Now, Emmanuel Dennis, coming from, obviously, Club Brugge, is a great signing, I think. And he's going to hopefully hit the ground running. He's done a lot of good things for, you know, teams in the past. And I don't see why, you know, he can't do well and start well, especially against Aston Villa on the opening day. Maybe get a cheeky little double along with an Ismaila Sarr goal, perhaps. I don't know. But I think Emmanuel Dennis is such a bargain at 5 million, so you've got to consider him. But Joao Pedro, you'd imagine there was a little doubt with whether he'd start. But if we play, you know, a 4-3-3 and we have two wingers and a forward, then we might have Pedro on the left, or if not, Pedro comes off the bench, a bit like Ken Sema. And if Sema doesn't play, then Pedro fills that spot. So yeah, I think it's a interesting one with Pedro. How far he'll go, whether he'll be able to make the step up is the question. But I think Dennis is certainly good enough to make that step up. He's a very good player who's got a lot of, you know, eye for goal and experience. But will Pedro have a breakout season? There is a chance of it. I think someone like Philip Zinckernagel is not worth it, in my opinion, because, you know, he's just had a very up and down season where he struggled to really implement himself. But instead, I'm going for Dennis. He probably will start, and I think that attack with Sarr and Dennis could be pretty lethal. So that is my video done. Just to recap, we've got the goalkeeper, Ben Foster, cheap as chips, midfielder, Ismaila Sarr, and forward, we've gone with Emmanuel Dennis. But I could be wrong because how much of a role Emmanuel Dennis plays is a question that we need to kind of work out. And also, do we involve Ashley Fletcher? But I'd imagine not. I think Dennis is the key man that we have, at the front of our attack. And if we sign Rafael Borré, which we've been linked with, then obviously we've got even more options, which is just causing more headaches for this FPL selection. But that is my video done. I hope you have enjoyed, and I shall see you, I'm very sure, in the near future for another one. But yeah, those are my suggestions for the early part of the season. Obviously, still got the friendlies to come, still got a long way to go until we can really see who's nailed on. But those are my initial thoughts and initial ideas about who the best Watford assets are for the new season. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.